All right. So, the first movie that we are going to be reviewing today is a movie called The Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is a
It's the Demeter.
Demeter. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, the Demeter. Yeah. So it's all about this ship and this crew on this ship and their voyage to England. They realize in their kind of voyage there, they're carrying some very, very dangerous cargo. I think that. I mean, is it pretty much already out there what the cargo is, pretty much, or no?
Oh yeah, Dracula is all over the
Oh,
marketing of this movie, which I think is kind of a mistake. I feel like with this, you could have had a really cool twist in a movie because you remember that movie that came out a couple years ago, Underwater, with Kristen Stewart.
I know of it. I never saw it.
All right, so for like 2/3 of the movie, it's kind of like this generic kind of alien, but it's set under on the ocean floor with this research team. But in the third act, it's revealed that the monster that's hunting them is Cthulhu. It's like
Mm,
no shit, actually Cthulhu. And I felt like that was kind of a cool twist on that. And I feel like that would have served this movie really well, not actually knowing that it is, in fact, Dracula. I mean, because the title of the movie is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. For all of you people all of you learned folk, you know that is based on the Captain's Log chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And just hearing that pitch of having this kind of doomed crew where they're slowly getting picked apart by Dracula, that's a cool concept. And they thought so back in 2005, which was when this movie was first starting to get into development. But through various studio changes, various directors have been attached and passed on this. It's been in development hell for a long, long time.
mm, okay. And this movie is directed by Andre Overdell. He did also Troll Hunter. He did The Autopsy of Jane Doe, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Mortal, and a Korean. Oh no, he didn't do this. He just produced it. Yeah. So out of all, I think this is maybe the first movie I've seen of him because I didn't see The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I didn't see Troll Hunter. I never see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah,
Um,
Troll Hunter is a fantastic kind of B movie horror comedy, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I wasn't crazy about it the first time I saw it, but rewatching it on streaming, it's kind of grown on me as like this kind of PG entry into horror for younger audiences. But The Autopsy of Jane Doe scares the ever loving shit out of me.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one myself.
It's fantastic.
Okay, maybe I'll go check it out. So yeah, like Nick said, this is the Captain's Log based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. Stuck in development hell for a long time.
Yeah. It first started. Production was started on this in 2003, so this has been in development for almost 20 years.
Yeah. Here in the cast, the most probably recognizable name that you'll probably see is Corey Hawkins. Corey Hawkins, he was in Straight Outta Compton, where he played Dr. Dre. He was also in the reboot of the 24 television series there. He was the lead in that. And he's popped up in various different things like that. You also have David Dastmalchian, big time character actor. He was in the Ant-Man movies. He was Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad. He's been in also a various amount of different other things. He shows up in there who in some lighting in some kind of ways, he almost kind of looks like Robert Pattinson in The Lighthouse a little bit.
A little bit. And Desmalchin, he's one of those actors who kind of has this odd look about him. And when I saw him on the cast list, I could have sworn that he was going to end up playing Dracula.
Interesting. Yeah, so you have this crew of people that they're taking this cargo. They got to go to England. Of course, the cargo, if you know of it, it is Dracula, and he's picking off the crew one by one. It's how they can kind of survive against Dracula here. And watching this movie, I kept thinking, man, this would really be a lot better if Robert Eggers, this seems like more of a Robert Eggers type movie that he would really excel at, this time period that is in, because it's set in 1897, this kind of, being on this ship, playing upon this, mentioning the lighthouse, there's the scary nature of this thing that's picking off these people one by one. And you can, get these people being incredibly paranoid and turning on each other. I think he would have really done that, in a much, much, better way and an excellent way, as you've seen with his work of things like The Lighthouse or things like The Witch. And I think he could have done a fantastic job with that. And here, I think what you get is a lot of kind of cheap, kind of, jump scares, a lot of cheap kind of horror moments here. And I think even the effects with Dracula himself, it's kind of, I think it's mostly CGI. It seems like that's what it kind of.
It's actually mostly practical work. It's practical makeup, because Dracula here is played by Javier Botet, who is a fantastic creature actor. He's been in stuff like the Wreck films. He was the title character in Mama. He played the Crooked Man in The Conjuring 2. He was also in It and one of the Insidious movies.
Interesting. Okay. How did you like the look of Dracula in this?
I liked it. It reminded me a lot of kind of like that Nosferatu-esque look, and something that with a character like Dracula, because he is in the public domain, you can pretty much do whatever you want with him. There are so many different versions of it. You have kind of like the grotesque, monstrous look of something like Nosferatu, and you have the kind of suave and sexy look to Dracula that a lot of other filmmakers have done. And I liked that in this in this adaptation, we're getting more of that primal force of nature look with Dracula, because he is basically a monster, and this is him at his most savage, which you could infer that just from reading that chapter in Bram Stoker's novel.
Yeah. So you do kind of have that. So it's mostly, you're going to see it because most of the movie takes place really during darkness, because that's the time Dracula can come out. When it's rainy, the seas are, at its most highest and heavy, where it's crashing against the ship. How did you kind of get some of your thoughts on it? How did you like this cast? And what are some of your just overall thoughts on the movie?
So with me, I really ended up liking a lot of what I was seeing in this movie. I really liked a lot of the character dynamics that we saw. I loved Corey Hawkins' performance, who is an American actor, but he's actually doing a very solid English accent, and he's been in a lot of stuff, and I keep being surprised when I see him that this guy has this much range. Also, a highlight of this is David Desmalchin, who is Wojciech, who is the first mate, and as well as Liam Cunningham, who I think is criminally underutilized in this movie, because just the sound of that man's voice, he carries a lot of gravitas. And of course, he played the Onion Knight in Game of Thrones, so I'm always happy to see him. You also got supporting performances from Stefan Kapicic, who played Colossus in the Deadpool movies. You have John Briones, who I thought was really a really fun character in this, and someone that I think is not getting her praises is Eileen Francoisi, who plays a stowaway on the ship who has a connection to Dracula. I think she is fantastic in this, and she kind of is like the harbinger of, hey, we need to get the fuck off this ship.
Yeah.
I thought that for all of its strengths, like with the cast, the character dynamics, all of the dramatic stuff, I thought the horror aspects of this were the kind of the weakest. It kind of felt like it was delving more into the generic kind of jump scares of horror that I've really kind of grown sick of, especially seeing stuff like Talk to Me, stuff like X or Pearl, where you're getting more into psychological. And I think you can do a lot of that with Dracula, especially with this version of that story. I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity, but I ended up liking this purely on kind of like 80s creature feature kind of level.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really do much with the
Mhm,
kind of horror element here. I mean, a lot of the characters, I mean, a lot of them are types. So I don't think they do
mhm,
anything to, elevate themselves to being more than just types. You have the character Corey Hawkins in this, who's, he's a doctor. He comes on board. He is like, I'm a man of science. I don't believe in all this mumbo jumbo type stuff. You have
mhm,
that kind of role typically in like a, horror movie. Then there's the characters that are there to just purely be slaughtered. Sometimes there's a young child there. There's that in here. You have the ultra religious person in here who that is played by John in this, who plays a character called Joseph. He's a Filipino actor. You've seen him. He was in
yeah.
American Horror Story Apocalypse. He was in that. Um, so he's like the ultra religious guy. Sometimes you have that in a horror movie. You have, the people in a horror movie who, just was like, let's just, maybe it's some explanation. Let's just go forward. Let's keep doing it instead of, like, because they're expecting a lot of money to take this cargo
Mhm,
to England. So they're just like, let's just push forward. They see all these weird stuff happening, and instead of just, going to another port, they're like, just let's just keep pushing forward. So it doesn't really, I don't think, elevate much
mhm,
kind of the material here, like a lot of these characters. The setting is, like I said, is ripe for some good stuff
mhm,
here. Being on this boat, the
mhm,
isolation of that, being out just in the open sea. But I think it just comes up to a lot of just jump scares and a lot
mhm.
of, just kind of, even the kills, I think, are just kind of subpar, even
Yeah.
that. Um,
Yeah, which to me was a bit of a letdown considering the work that Andre Uvedal did with something like The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which in and of itself is kind of a similar, at least conceptually, in that it is just this small cast of characters in this one location and kind of playing around with that claustrophobia and that sense of isolation.
Yeah. Can you answer this question at all?
Oh,
Rating Maturity Head. Do you get any real arcs for characters like Mina or Jonathan Harker or Renfield or any big characters from the novel?
uh,
Uh, well,
no,
Renfield,
no,
he's in
yeah,
it.
no characters from the novel appear in this.
Yeah. So there's no any of those characters like that from the book. Yeah. So I wish they kind of just did
Mhm,
more with that.
mhm.
Um,
And I'm also kind of let down because the Netflix version of Dracula, the entire second episode is essentially adapting the whole Captain's Log chapter of that. And I thought that was fantastic because a lot of it was playing into Dracula's motivation as a character. And that's something I felt was a little bit lacking because he is treated so much as this just monstrous being that he isn't really a character. He's just this one-dimensional embodiment of evil.
Yeah. Do you also think this movie's too long? It's close to 2 hours. It's an hour and 59 for a movie that's kind of
Mhm.
seems like it's pretty simple here. It's just like, okay, go to point A, go to point B. It's about them just putting this thing on the ship, traveling to England. Do you think it's just too long too?
Oh, absolutely. I think for as good a time as I had with this, the movie really didn't pick up for me until close to the second act. I feel like there's a solid 30 minutes you could cut out of this movie, and you'd have a nice, tight 90 minutes, something that is just working as a kind of bare bones creature feature, which this movie ultimately ends up working best as.
Mm. Yeah. Um, yeah. I think overall, I don't think this movie is maybe something
Mhm,
you would maybe want to spend your time in the theater. I
mhm,
think at best it's probably something you would just want to watch at home, streaming wise.
mhm,
Because the performances in here, they're decent enough. I
mhm,
mean, David Dust Melchin does kind of a good job here. Kind of makes me think maybe, would want to see him in a better movie and some more leading roles. Um, you know,
mhm. Yeah, I keep hearing good stuff about him in The Boogeyman, which came out earlier this year, which is I think is coming on streaming soon, and I'm really looking forward to actually watching that. But I love him every time I see him in something.
yeah. Um, so and Corey Hawkins, I think he's just okay in this. I don't think this
Mhm,
is the best I've seen him. I think this is the first time I've seen him in a horror movie before. Unless you want to count him being in Compton and Straight Outta Compton as a horror thing. But this is the first time I've ever seen him in a horror movie, and yeah, I mean, I don't think nobody's really outstanding here. And it
mhm,
doesn't, like I said, doesn't really raise the material of this. And I think it had good opportunity to do so because of all the elements, and it kind of falls short of that. So I think I would just kind of give it kind of just a basic low
mhm.
stream it for me.
Mhm.
That would kind of be it. What about you?
Me, I kind of was really lukewarm on this at the start of the movie. I felt like it took way too long to get the story, to get to our main cast of characters on the Demeter, and I thought it took too long to get there. But once it did, I ended up having a lot of fun with this. I really liked this entire cast. I dug their performance. I really liked how long the movie kind of kept Dracula in the shadows, because he's really out of focus. You don't really get a full good look at him until towards the third act of the movie, which I thought was very effective, in that this movie is essentially just Alien but with Dracula in the
Yeah.
1800s. And I thought that worked really well on that level. I like the practical effects on this. I like that we are getting a lot of those, even with some slight CG enhancements. I just think that I feel like the movie would have been better served if you kind of played that Dracula card a lot closer to the chest. If you kind of just sold this as this psychological horror film about this crew slowly losing their minds out at sea.
Yeah. Rating from Maturity said, didn't they show Dracula in the trailer? Yeah, you seen the
Yeah,
trailer. Yeah,
they showed him in the trailers, which I get it
yeah.
on a studio level, because you just put the title Voyage of the Demeter. About 2/3 of the movie going audience, they're not going to know what the fuck that means. I mean, half the country can barely read as is. I doubt they're reading Dracula.
Yeah. I said it was the Dementor. I was thinking of Harry Potter. That's what my mind went to. So yeah, so I didn't see the trailer for. I don't even think I saw the trailer for this. And like you said, Last Voyage of the Demeter. I mean, that's not really that catchy of a title.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not really selling it as a horror film. That kind of making it sound like something like Master and Commander or some kind of seafaring tale, which the movie kind of is. But I ended up having a lot of fun with this. I think that it is really a movie that is better served on streaming. I think that this is a very strong stream it. I had a lot of fun with this purely on a creature feature level. I think this is a very fun watch to have with a couple friends over, and just to admire it on that kind of like spook house level. It
mm,
is kind of nuts that we have two movies in like succeeding weeks that are seafaring, about people at sea, and this ended up being better than the one with the giant shark.
mm. Um, oh, actually, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think Meg 2, at
I
least that
I
was
had more fun with this than I did the Meg 2.
at least Meg 2, I think for me, I don't know, it was laughable. I think it was just laughably bad. And it had some good, I think it had some better kills in the Meg 2. I
Mm,
don't know. At least I thought so.
the first Meg was better.
Uh, so yeah, that was the last voyage of the Demeter. I gave it a low stream it. Nick gave it a fun, solid stream it.
Mhm.
There you go.